Today, we are beginning our 3-round post-Micah Parsons trade 2026 NFL mock draft. Just like the real draft today, day one is round one. Tomorrow is rounds 2 and 3. Let's jump right into this. I'm going to be doing this with trades. And yes, I actually ended up accounting for the Micah Parsons trade, which is going to be multiple firsts, as well as Kenny Clark to the Dallas Cowboys. We're going to have plenty of time to discuss that. I have yet to discuss it on the channel. So when the Dallas pick comes up, we'll discuss it. When the Green Bay pick comes up, we'll discuss it. But sitting here at number 1 overall, we have the New York Giants. And, I think that this is the perfect opportunity for a trade out. I really don't like the idea of doing trades in these, but at the same time, some people got grouchy last time, and I want to give you guys some damn good content. And I was really hoping to have our sponsor of the show be able to approve an ad for this. We're not going to be able to have that for this. So I ended up rushing this out, regardless of what, my sponsor would want. It's like, I want to give you guys the best content available, and that isn't on their timeline. That's on mine and yours. So number 1 overall, New York Giants. I think that if they're sitting here, absolutely, should they consider upgrading a quarterback? Sure. But they have a very tough schedule. For those of y'all who are watching and are thinking about Arch Manning, I'm not including him in this. So that's a big asterisk. I think the best quarterback in the class is Lenore Sellers. I think he has a lot of room to grow and develop, but at the same time, he was a first-year starter last year and showed a ton of development over the year. So I do believe this is the perfect opportunity for a team to move up, get aggressive, and end up getting their guy. Now, I do see a potential quarterback here at number 2. I see one at potentially number 5, and then we could also go down the list. You could talk about number 8, etc. So I do think there will be a lot of teams trying to make their push for their guy, and I think the team I want to move up the most is the Jets, because I'm looking at a team right here also eager for a trade back in the Tennessee Titans. The Jets just need to make it happen. And so we're going to have an East Rutherford trade, and we're going to be moving up with the New York Jets here. Again, the Giants lost their 3rd-round pick. So, I do believe this would probably cost a second and probably something in the future as well. We'll toss in a future second. And, honestly, for the sake of this, I might do a double one. No, we'll do a 1-2-2. I think that's a little bit more fair. And, maybe you can claw back something. I'm not going to play those games. Feel free to adjust it on your own. But I think for the cost of 2-2s, the New York Giants also bolster that extra pick they lost in that move up for Jackson Dart. And then you also get some future capital as well. So we move back to number 4 overall as the Giants. The Jets move up to number 1 overall and are getting the best quarterback in the class. Some people think that's Cade Klubnik. By all means, if that's what you believe, go for it, because I can guarantee you, most likely, I'm going to be going with either Lenoris or Cade Klubnik with 1 or 2. So if you really don't like Lenoris and you want Cade at number 1, do it. I'm not going to blame you, but I think Lenoris is the most special player in the class. I do not think he's another Anthony Richardson. I do not think he's another Trey Lance. Did not like Trey Lance, was worried about Anthony Richardson, and Lenoris is the guy who I have significantly less questions on. And kind of crazy to think that, but I do think Lenore Sellers has extreme, insane potential, and you bring him into an offense that already is going to be comfortable with a mobile quarterback in Justin Fields. It's going to be very difficult to say no. At number 2, though, for the Cleveland Browns, again, they have 2 picks, one at number 10 and one at number 2. I don't think there's going to be a team trying to push to trade up above the Titans here, so I feel very comfortable with the idea of the Browns sticking and picking. And if they are here, you could talk about Shadur, you could talk about Dylan Gabriel, but the fact is, if you're sitting here at number 2 and feel like you have a number 1 overall quarterback on the table, then you take them. And some people will think that's Drew Aller. Some people will think that's Cade Klubnik. Some people will even go as far as to say it's Fernando Mendoza. But I will end up saying, some people say Garrett Nussmeier as well. I think Garrett definitely has, if he can improve the consistency, the potential to be a number 2 or number 1 pick. But I will go with Cade Klubnik here. I think Drew Aller is the dark horse above Cade, because Drew Aller plays in the cold. He's a bigger guy. And Cade is from Westlake, Texas. Not necessarily used to the AFC North climate, but at the same time, I think he's going to win the Natty this year, and that's going to drive a lot of eyes to him as one of those leaders, and he's improved every year. I have the same praise that I can end up talking about for Drew Aller, but I think Cade Klubnik is the safer option and will end up being a good quarterback for the Browns. Number 3, we have the Tennessee Titans, and I think this is again one of those opportunities for us to potentially move back with a team that's trying to get aggressive. I doubt the Raiders are sitting there at number 7. They could be in the mood to move up and select their quarterback. I just don't know if anybody is going to be essentially paying the price to move up. And if you're not going to pay the price to move up, what are you going to go for? You're going to go best player available. And to me, that's down pretty much to Caleb Downs as well as Jordan Tyson. Both of them are phenomenal players. However, I do think you could end up, going after another receiver down the line that is, at least somewhat on the level of Jordan Tyson. I do think that he is clearly the wide receiver 1, but if you want to go and roll the dice with a Noah Thomas in round 2, then that's something that's your own prerogative. But I'm actually going to go after the player that kind of feels irreplaceable in this class, and that is Caleb Downs. And, New York ended up moving back, getting multiple seconds. If you want to toss in a first, by all means. I mean, again, this is not going to change any future drafts. I try my best to only focus on what's really going to affect this mock draft, which is that extra second round pick. But sitting here at number 4, this actually feels really easy to me. One of the positions the Giants need is that right tackle spot for the long haul, and this class is not good at tackle. Don't listen to the noise. I mean, a lot of people are going to say this class has a lot of top tackles. First off, PFF, get your shit together. Jake Slaughter's a center. You know what I mean? They're putting Parker Brailsford as a center. I think this is 100%. This is 100% careless error. This is not something that we can get on somebody. This was not purposeful, but PFF, quality control. I saw someone mention this to me last week. You got to go in there and just re-update the roster, bud. That's just what you got to do. But anywho, there's just a lot of questions over the offensive line in this class. And if I'm just being completely honest, where I really think the value is, am I not mistaken? They have all the guards in here too. That's kind of funny. Caleb Lamu is a name that a lot of people love. What the fuck? But the right tackle, they're going to list him at guard. Yep, there you go. Spencer Fano. He's not a guard. He's 6'6", 302 pounds. Should probably get up to 310, 315. Doesn't actually have a weight issue when you watch how he plays. But the tackle class, weak. And the top end of the tackle class, Spencer Fano is my number 4 player in the entire class, someone who I love to death. He provides something that not many players can. CeCe Mauigoa is viewed by a lot of people as a guard, including myself. And if you're counting him even as a tackle, right? There's only one right tackle that is remotely worth it at this point, unless you're really trusting tackles to make the switch, which kind of was the issue last time the Giants took a tackle this high. I don't think there's any competition. Spencer Fano in a multiple second round picks feels like the damn good deal to me over going after Caleb Downs or something at number 1. At number 5 for the New Orleans Saints, I hate to be cliche. I hate to be boring, but the fact is there's a lot of factors that say Garrett Nussmeier is going to be the pick. I know it pisses off my Saints fans. I'm sorry, y'all. But just look at this logically. First off, Nussmeier's dad is part of the front office. Nepotism is a thing. But on top of that, a lot of NFL scouts love the mechanics. And the big time throws are phenomenal. If he can end up being more consistent, being the number 1 pick is not off the table. His problem is he's 204 pounds. He's not the biggest guy on planet Earth. And physics exists when you are playing guys like Dexter Lawrence and, Jordan Davis. There's just massive dudes who can end up essentially ruining your career because, unfortunately, the body can only handle so much. But on top of that, though, Garrett Nussmeier brings the big play potential that I just don't think the Saints have at the moment. And it sucks to give up on, what you can have right now. But if you're sitting there at number 5, just never apologize for continuing trying to make your team better. Again, Arch Manning not considered coming out in this. At number 6 for the Carolina Panthers, it's funny. This is actually a good spot to potentially trade back because we do have some very good quarterback talent on the board here with Drew Aller. It's Drew Aller, Fernando Mendoza. Those are the guys who are left, but I just don't think that a team is going to make that move. Now, for the Carolina Panthers, to me, it's down to Peter Woods and then TJ Parker. The problem is, we just have to see how Nick Scorton's going to return. I know there's a punctured lung that he's dealing with, and, Godspeed. I hope he ends up coming back when he's healthy and ends up staying healthy. Princely Umami had a 25% pass rush win rate in the preseason. That's excellent. Again, against backups, let's see if it can translate to the starters. But The Panthers definitely still could be looking for their top tier edge rusher, but at the same time, defensive interior, they got Tershawn Wharton, but I do think Peter Woods could end up bringing something that not anybody else has really brought to this defensive front outside of Derek Brown. And so I think Peter Woods is fantastic. He is flexible. He plays every position, and he's going to test out very well. One of the top guys on Bruce Feldman's freaks list. So we're going to be going after Peter Woods. At number 7 for the Las Vegas Raiders, it's an interesting spot. Again, you could talk about quarterback here. If Geno Smith really shits the bed, I mean, how could you be at number 7 with Ashton Genty, Geno Smith, and like the weapons that they have there? The offense alone is that good. And so I also think that they might feel like, let's not go after a QB at this point. There's going to be those developmental guys on day 2 that you could try to develop behind Geno, and that could end up really working out for you. But I do think edge 2 is something they have not truly addressed. I mean, Kuntz on a 1-year deal. Kayvon Chason is now the starting edge rusher for the Patriots, and it's kind of crazy. They only lost him for $5 million. I would have ended up paying Kayvon 10 at the very minimum. I was very surprised after the year he had that he was let go. Obviously, some organizational changes, but we're going to go after TJ Parker here, edge rusher out of Clemson. I have some edge rushers higher than him, but at the same time, I think that the biggest issue for TJ is his processing of the game. And he's 6'3", 265 pounds. Like, I think that as he continues to grow and develop as a player, those issues with processing will continue to fade. And I think Pete Carroll's not going to put up with it to the point where, iron sharpens iron. I think TJ Parker will end up being a top tier edge rusher there for the Raiders. At number 8 for the Indianapolis Colts, this is 100% going to be a quarterback. The question is which one. Arch Manning not considered in this. So Drew Aller, and then also Fernando Mendoza. Those are the top quarterbacks at the moment. Some people want to toss Sam Levitt in there. I think he has way too much room to grow. Drew Aller is awesome. The problem with him is that he has the mechanical errors that Anthony Richardson kind of never got over. Now, Anthony, I do believe the injury set back his development and almost put it in reverse, which really sucks. Drew's gotten better every single year. I think he's a better quarterback for a more gritty division. However, I think Fernando Mendoza, first off, in Indiana, so kind of makes sense. Right down the road, plenty of scouts have their eyes on him. I think he's going to be the big riser this year in terms of he's ranked 117. I don't think that's accurate, but Fernando Mendoza has great mobility, great playmaking ability, and I think that he's basically going to be a upgraded version of what you have right now in Danny Dimes. And that's a team that has, with pretty poor quarterback play, been 17-17 over the past couple of years, or I think over the past 4 years. Or past 2, excuse me. So over the past 2 years, you've been able to be 500 with pretty mediocre to poor quarterback play. I think Fernando Mendoza can get you guys at least 9 to 10 wins a year. At number 9, we have the Dallas Cowboys, and this is where we are going to talk about the Micah trade. First off, Micah got paid $48 million, $47 million. I think it was a 4-year contract that ended up netting $188. So that is a hefty contract, and there's some shit going on around Jerry Jones and how he's handling it. I'm going to be honest. I'm not going to read too much into that. Jerry's going to do Jerry. But multiple first-round picks. On top of that, Kenny Clark. For the Cowboys, they've been needing a top-tier defensive interior for a hot minute. They have not been able to find that. Osa Odighizuwa was their best defensive interior hit for a while. And so they ended up solving an issue they had by getting a guarantee. Now you're losing a cornerstone of your team, right? Like, I have a Micah Parsons Penn State jersey. Like, that's something that, I'm a huge supporter of Micah. And as a brand, it's very difficult to maintain your image when you let players like that go. However, how many guys can you pay, right? This is like the first time we're seeing, and I think the situation could have been way less drama filled, way less traumatic, right? I think it was handled very poorly by, the Dallas Cowboys side. I think they could have done it better. At the same time, Jerry talks about wanting a soap opera year round, and I don't know how much of that is artificial, but it definitely seems like a little bit inflated compared to what it should have been. At the same time, The Packers ended up getting Micah, multiple first, getting rid of one of their cornerstones on their defensive front, and then also ended up giving 47 million a year, where the next highest, if I'm not mistaken, is like 41.5 or 42. So Micah earned his money. I don't think he's going to reset the market where the next guy is going to get paid 47. I just don't think that's realistic. But, for the Cowboys, if you took on 47 million a year, there's just a certain point where your team gets too weak by paying so many players that at least the Cowboys ended up solving an issue they needed to solve and then also ended up getting the draft capital. The big question is, are you going to use the draft capital and flip it for great players? Or are you going to, continue drafting some mediocrity here, some mediocrity there? And, it just depends. Like, this is going to be something where we have to look in reverse and see. For the Packers, I think they're trying to do everything they can to win a Super Bowl very soon. And then for the Cowboys, obviously they're in a rebuild mode, which is a weird spot to be in after trading for George Pickens. But the Cowboys are in a very unique spot right now where with 2 first-round picks, especially if one is in the top 10 and one of them is right there in the early 20s, if you hit on both of those, I mean, you get yourself 2 cornerstones on cheap deals for 5 years. That's something that you can now afford to pay other positions, and it frees up a lot. So it just depends. If they're going to draft well, then this will end up being something that in retrospect ends up being a pretty solid deal. But, in the moment, it's like sometimes guys are invaluable. I think this ended up proving that it might not be the case. At number 9, though, talking about the Dallas Cowboys, a lot of good options. I don't think running back is going to be the position to target here. However, I do believe that edge rusher is now on the board for them. I mean, you lost your true edge 1. Their edge 2 was already in question as it is. Some people thought you could end up upgrading from it. But I do think that there are some very good players to add here. One of them being Ruben Bain. Now, it's going to be a little bit more of the Marshawn Nealon build, not necessarily the Micah build. But I do think there are some players as we continue going on that ends up filling that specific role in a way that I think is very, I'm comfortable with it. I do not think drafting a running back this high would end up solving any issue. And so I feel very comfortable going after, in my opinion, one of the best edge rushers in the entire class, the one with the most potential. Just physically, if he gets fully healthy, I think he could be a true number 1 pick. We're going to go after Ruben Bain here out of Miami. At number 10 for the Cleveland Browns, one of the guys who I really want for them is Ruben Bain. However, I'm going to look at a couple other positions, one of them being tackle, the other being edge rusher. Now, tackle, I do think that they need to go after someone who's going to be a bit more consistent. And one of those players, did they put him at guard? I think they just ended up randomly putting a PFF, man. Please fix this. I mean, it is embarrassing. I'm just going to be completely honest. Like, Isaiah World is a guard. Like, I know that it was an import error. Like, Blake Miller is a center. I know that their spreadsheet definitely got messed up. So I hope they fix that. Again, as someone who deals with spreadsheets and data all the time, it's so easy for something like this to happen. But obviously, when I'm making you guys content and I pay for this, it is a little frustrating. We're going to go after Caleb Tiernan here out of Northwestern, someone who is gritty, who's handled the big offensive linemen and such. I think this is great for Cade Klubnik as well. Like, Caleb Tiernan is somebody who, even with 35 or 32.5-inch arms, he handles guys with 35-inch arms extremely well. And I love seeing guys like that. Very, very polished. Someone who I have a lot of respect for. Player definitely in need of more love. At number 11 for the Seattle Seahawks, interesting position to be in for sure. One that I'd probably try to trade back from. Again, we do still have Drew Aller on the board. I think for the Browns, I would have debated trading back, but I think there are too many teams in here looking for that left tackle spot. And I had Caleb Tiernan at number 3. The value had to be had. If you're sitting there at number 11, though, I do think Drew Aller should at least be in the back of the Seahawks' mind. And I repeat, do not let a 3rd-round pick that is just a crazy athlete there in Jalen Milroe stop you from a true upgrade. However, I think it will. And I think the team that's going to take advantage of this is the Pittsburgh Steelers. And like 14 to 11, I know that 16 to 14 is pick 120. I think this will only end up costing a 3rd-round pick. Could end up costing a little bit more, but we're going to give Dallas's pick as part of it. Maybe you end up squeezing out Dallas's 5th next year. happy Hanukkah, happy New Year, Merry Christmas, whatever the hell you want to say. We're going to force this trade through. The Seahawks get an extra third round pick, which they've done good in the third round. The Steelers end up moving up for their star quarterback. I do not think any other quarterback besides Drew Aller is worthy of a first round pick. Drew Aller also brings that Big Ben essence to him, also in Pennsylvania, used to the cold. And he's somebody who I think could end up truly leading this team to true success. I love Will Howard to death. He's the perfect guy to balance Drew Aller in case Drew needs that year to develop. But sometimes you just got to take advantage of those guys who have shown year over year progression, have the ability to withstand the physicality of the AFC North, and is somebody who has the ceiling to be someone who could be the franchise guy. And number 12 for the New England Patriots, crazy he fell this far, but Jordan Tyson. That's the answer, man. I mean, I know that we're talking about potentially Jacoby Myers going to the New England Patriots. We'll see if that ends up coming to fruition. But at the same time, I mean, this is just a no-brainer to me. Jordan Tyson is a complete all-around receiver that is perfect for Drake May, especially when you see Javon Baker being waived and all that. Certainly in need of one of those true ones. At number 13 for the Los Angeles Rams via Atlanta, if Drew Aller were here, doing it all day. All day. Again, Arch Manning not considered coming out in this mock draft. So looking at the options available, right tackle would have been nice, right? I just don't see an option there. We could try with Caleb Lamu to be the future at right. You could also talk about Isaiah World being the future at right tackle. If Jordan Tyson were available, I would just say, I don't care how slow my receiving core is. We got to do what we got to do. Like, it's a weird spot for the Rams, and honestly, I feel very comfortable if we see the right player here and the right opportunity moving back. Dylan Thieneman is a safety. I don't know why he's listed as a corner. Again, I'm praying for PFF to fix their stuff. I really do want that for him. I do think Dylan Thieneman is going to be a potential all-pro at safety. Dude's extremely reliable as a free, but Thieneman is definitely someone I'd consider moving up for. You also have Overton, but with Overton, you also end up having some other quality edge rushers. I have to include DI because randomly Overton is there. But, I mean, there's definitely some players here like David Bailey you could talk about, LT Overton, Keldrick Falk, Denny Dennis Sutton. Guys that are worthy of discussion. Malachi Lawrence, I love him to death. I know some other people love him too. Honestly, for the Rams, though, I think I will end up caving and going after. He's now listed as a guard. He is not. He's definitely not a guard. Isaiah World, tackle out of Oregon, formerly Nevada. He also has experience at right tackle, so he's going to be the long-term option there. And then, you're just going after a player who I think is fantastic. He has a very, very high ceiling, has some penalty issues, but something I think he can work on. Number 14, Seattle Seahawks, also a guy who we could have ended up going after. We ended up picking up a free third-round pick. And looking at corners, I think there's definitely some guys I would be intrigued with. But most importantly, I'm looking at that edge position as well. Mike McDonald likes guys who are flexible, and Keldrick Falk and LT Overton are exactly that. To me, the areas of improvement for the Seahawks are right tackle in case Abe can't stay healthy. You could talk about the interior of the offensive line for sure, but also I want to toss in the edge rusher position because I personally do not think that the Seahawks are complete at edge. Unfortunately, Derek Hall has not lived up to the name, and that might scare you away from going to Auburn. And I love LT Overton. I think he's someone who has top 5 overall pick potential, and so we're going to take that at number 14. Number 15 for the Miami Dolphins. A lot of good options. People just instantly slot in the cornerback position, and I think that's totally fair. I think we also have a lot of good picks to where we can try to figure that out. The player I'm almost thinking of is Dylan Thieneman at this point. I mean, he is somebody who is just so damn good. And he's not a corner. He is a safety. And I think he and Micah could end up making a really unique pairing. But Dylan is a bit more of a free. So I do also think there might be a little bit of an overlap in responsibilities. Now, you could talk about the Dolphins here at this spot looking for their future quarterback. I think there's just too many that have been taken. So I'm not going to do that. That's just not how I'm going to roll with this. I do think this is also a potential trade back spot because I am seeing some players that I really do want to go here. Caden Proctor could be discussed in that realm. Same thing with Jeremiah Love. If there's a team trying to move up and get their top tier back, Jeremiah Love could be that for you. But the player who I really think I'm I tried to convince it for the Dolphins as well. He's listed at corner, but he's not. It's Dylan Thieneman, safety out of Oregon, also formerly Purdue. Like, I do think the Bears are a dark horse team for Dylan Thieneman, somebody that I might take. And so I'm looking in the division. We're also, I mean, I think you could end up talking about the Vikings being a good option there. You could talk about dark horse team. Well, no, they actually, I forgot about them. The Broncos going after Hufanga. But I would also try to toss in a couple other teams that are looking for their free safety. Looking at it though, they're a little too far away. So I think we might have to stick and pick. Like, looking at it, I just don't feel very comfortable with the Miami Dolphins being able to get the value to move back. And if you're going to get the value, you got to go after the best player available. And I personally think Dylan Thieneman might be that guy. I personally think that he's going to be fantastic. Might be a overuse of the like more free safety archetype, but I just don't think you have very solid defensive backs in your defensive back core. And I think this is the right guy to be able to bring in. He's going to work with Micah, be culture setters. And on top of that, as Micah continues to phase out, I think you're going to be in a good spot. Again, defensive back, not cornerback, and Dylan Thieneman. Number 16 for the Bears. Again, I really would have loved to throw the curveball there at Thieneman. You got to go old but gold, man. I mean, just you can't ignore it. I do think defensive interior edge rusher are two positions that could end up really popping up as a position to go after. Christian Miller absolutely should be discussed here. But Jeremiah Love, out of realism, will probably go at 16. You could talk about him at 17. You could talk about him at 20. You could talk about him if RJ Harvey fails at 19, right? At 21. So I just think this is the perfect range for Jeremiah to go, and we're going to draft him there at 16. At 17 for the Arizona Cardinals, I do think right tackle is the right move. And looking at the players that I have available, I want to go after Caleb Lamu, tackle out of tackle out of Utah. And I think Caleb Lamu is much higher than this right now on Trev's board. I don't know what's going on here. Again, personally, I care about data integrity, especially when people are paying for it. Something that should have been fixed a week ago. But the right tackle spot could be filled by Caleb Lamu. I think it's very valuable to go after a top-tier offensive lineman. I just think that, based on the players available, I don't see an upgrade pretty much anywhere else. Caleb Lamu might be a little undersized, but I do think his talent shines through it all. If you're having Jonah Williams be able to play, I think that Caleb Lamu can end up taking that to a whole new level. At number 18 for the Minnesota Vikings, like, good spot to be in because you talk the corner situation, and in my opinion, this is where the first corner should probably be going. Defensive interior, though, man. I mean, I think you definitely need to be focused on getting someone who could be a plug. I'm going to focus on that pick 50 or 82. There's a lot of guys who I think could be a really nice plug in the middle, so I'm going to leave that be. So looking at other positions for them to target, corner for sure. Wide receivers a dark horse. Again, you have like Adam Thielen and such. Like Jordan Addison obviously isn't really loved by the fans anymore. But I do think the physicality of Jermod McCoy could definitely be on Brian Flores' list. I was like, what the hell? How am I forgetting that name? But Avion Terrell just fits a lot better. And you might say, well, Jermod McCoy definitely feels like the better fit. But look at history and what they've been going after. Like, Isaiah Rodgers is the exact reason why I'm looking at Avion Terrell. I have Avion better than Jermod, but at the same time, fit matters the most. And Avion Terrell, for me, is going to be the right selection here. It just matches what they've gone after. I think if you continue moving down, there are a lot of teams in here that can end up sniping your guy. At 19 for the Denver Broncos, I think this is where we can't ignore the tight end position. Kadian Sadiq, all day. I mean, he is the best tight end that I've studied in a hot minute outside of Brock Bowers. Because again, Brock Bowers wasn't a tight end. He was a super weapon. But Kenyon Sadiq, I mean, that tight end position definitely needs continual improvement. Kenyon Sadiq is a game changer. I could see him being a top 5 to top 3 tight end in the NFL. And number 20 for the Houston Texans. It looks like their left tackle situation has been fulfilled by their second round pick, Ariante Ursary. Wishing him the best of luck. He was fun to talk to as well. So really good guy. Have a lot of respect for him. The defense feels pretty much filled out. Defensive interior, though, I think is something they've patched up so well. But I am kind of tired of doing the same old, same old. I'm talking about a player who I have at number 7 overall being available here. I'm going to go Christian Miller, defensive interior out of Georgia. I think this guy has sky-high ceiling. Problem is, he's just obviously a little bit more on the raw side, 6'4", 310. And he's somebody who could be a true game wrecker. My defensive interior 1, but I do think Peter Woods has the better resume. At number 21 for the Dallas Cowboys, we already have picked Ruben Bain. So the pain has been filled with the bane, if you will. I do think if you're sitting there at number 9, I will be looking potentially at some offensive tackle help here. Again, driving me nuts. Looking at my board, my next best tackle, Rymack is a guard, even though like I would love for him to have been a tackle. My next best tackle is Alex Harkey, and I'm not going to go that route. So we're not going to waste this pick here on something that we need. We're going to go after something that is the right value. And tight end, wide receiver, don't really see that being something that we should target here. Obviously, running back you can talk about, but I think 41 will feel a lot better in that aspect. Again, this is the Green Bay pick. I think for Green Bay, they'll end up being Super Bowl champions, just like Super Bowl. That's pretty ballsy. Super Bowl competitors, and not just competitors, true contenders. So good on them for building up a roster that is really, really respectable. I do think the Cowboys defense is still a little bit iffy. But the more I look at it, the more I just want to trade back and get out of here. I mean, you can go after Caden Proctor and try to develop a true left tackle here, but it feels just very uncomfortable trying to develop another player while you're in this mold. Like you could, honestly, probably would be the way they'd rock. Like move Tyler Guyton to right tackle again where he belongs and then kick Terrence Steele to the curb. It's probably what they should do. If they really want to talk about going and developing, that's actually the way they rock. So I think realistically, that's the right move. At number 22 for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, we have not picked for them yet, but I do think this is the perfect opportunity to look at someone like Keldrick Falk. But I do think I know the first player in free agency that was signed was Hassan Reddick. And I see David Bailey being a lot closer body type wise. Joshua Josephs is a dark horse, but not in the first. David Bailey is super polished. I think he's going to have a huge year for Texas Tech, someone who I like a ton. At 23 for the Los Angeles Chargers, honestly, if you end up seeing Kenyon Sadiq here, I think that's the choice. I don't think any of the other tight ends really make a strong push for the first. Running back, they have it covered. Wide receiver, they have it pretty much covered. Like, I feel like you could try to address interior offensive line here. Like, this is the first time where you feel comfortable with it. However, with, the way that, again, there's also some, I love Lyndon Cooper out of Pitt. There's so many players that you can end up filling that center spot with. I don't think that's a need. I think you should go after Keldrick Falk here because the value is right. The player is right. I know we should get some trades in here, but the value is just hitting. And I do know for the next pick, that would have probably been where I'd want to go. Speaking of a team that does not have their second round pick, this is a perfect opportunity to try to move back because I don't really feel excited about any of these players specifically for the Commanders. And I'm looking at a team like the Rams right here, where you could talk about the quarterback for sure. You talk about Sam Levitt here, but I do think we've gone to, forgot about Mateer. You know what? I do think that there should be a small push by some of these teams to go up and get their guy. Now, the question is who else is going to be competing for the quarterback? Like that's because I was thinking the Rams move up for Jamal McCoy, jump the Bengals. That's no longer really my prerogative. Like I don't think that there's much of a threat there. But looking at some teams that could absolutely try to move up and get their guy. The Eagles are not trading in division as much as they'll try. Howie will try, but I don't think it's going to happen. The Chiefs, I do think Jermod McCoy would be really intriguing for them. Getting a big physical corner. I also think they'll have the proper draft capital to try to make said move. The Niners, I still think getting a big physical corner on the boundary as Renardo Green continues to develop, and obviously Diamador Lenoir, he's like, you have some good DBs. You can end up continuing to add to it. Honestly, I really do like the idea of going Jermod McCoy at this pick. Not for the Commanders, but I am starting to think that for the Chiefs specifically with that move up, it makes a lot of sense. Even for the Ravens, I think it makes a lot of sense. The Giants, because they have 2 picks here, like you could try to do a little bit of a flop where you have the 2 seconds, you move all the way up, and then you get their 3rd round pick. There's easy ways to try to manipulate the board. That's what I'm trying to get at. But for me, I'm going to be making this move with the Kansas City Chiefs. And for this range, I think it'll take a 3rd round pick. So I'm going to give essentially 2 4s and, that also makes me feel really comfortable filling in this gap right here. Feel free to argue about the 2027 comp. I'm perfectly fine with this, but the Chiefs have moved up and are selecting a surprise pick here because edge rusher absolutely could be on the board. And to be honest, I wouldn't blame you if you end up going this route, but I do think maybe Trey Hendrickson goes and signs here. Jermod McCoy. He's just a big physical corner, could end up being a true lockdown one, has high zone IQ, just needs to be healthy. At number 25 for the Cincinnati Bengals, good spot to be in because you have a lot of options. I do think you could go CC Mauigoa here to fill in the other guard spot that Dalton Reisner is filling in for the time being. Obviously that's probably going to be where I would want to put someone, but their defensive back room also needs help. I mean, I'm looking at someone like Mansour Delane here, who is my corner one, but I do think there's a consensus top two corners that deserve some love. And this is a guy who I think could end up really working here in an Al Golden defense. So we're going to go with after Mansour Delane. Have a small corner run right there. At number 26 for the Rams, I mentioned this. Again, Arch Manning not considered coming out in this. John Mateer has a lot of room to grow, but I do think this is one of those spots where you have that fifth year, and I think it's going to be super duper helpful. At number 27 for the Detroit Lions, I honestly think edge 2, not a bad option. Not a bad option. You have Denis Dennis Sutton here, who is a gritty, big, physical player who's developed every year. First year being able to see him as a true edge 1. It's exciting for me. So I'm actually going to go after Denis Dennis Sutton here. At number 28, we have the San Francisco 49ers. We know develop offensive line talent. The question is, who should we develop, right? And I mean, CC Mauigoa is fun, but I think he's a little bit more of a guard. Again, you have to check the interior offensive line rankings just in case they have a tackle in here, which funnily enough, none of these guys I really think are a tackle outside of like Blake Miller. So I don't feel comfortable with the Niners going after one of the tackles at the moment. Again, you could go after Mauigoa. I respect it if that's what you think is the right move. But at the same time, secondary-wise, you could try to adjust for the Niners. It's so easy to just draft interior offensive line for him. I'm like, shit. Wide receiver has been like crippling to the Niners in terms of the amount of health. Could talk about a tight end here if you really do want to play for the long run. Not easy. Honestly, you might just go after best player available, which is Mauigoa. If he ends up being a guard, he ends up being a guard. Some people really think he's a tackle. This is late one territory. I think it's worth taking the shot. Seasoned veteran, somebody who can end up playing on the inside or the out. Sometimes if you're at the back end of the first, you just want to get a damn good player. I respect it. Number 29, we have the Washington Commanders. And again, this is a team that continues putting guys from the geriatric hospital onto their edge core no longer. I'm looking at some really, really good edge rushers here. And one of which I really want to toss out here, which is going to be Malachi Lawrence out of UCF. I really do think he's going to have a chance to be worth one of these picks, but I do think Cassius Howell is going to be the one that fits a little bit better with the Commanders. Great build here. He is about that 250-pound frame at 6'2", and he's someone who's explosive, who's finally getting his chance to shine, and that's what's super awesome here. Cassius Howell is pretty much on everybody's like sleeper rising up list, so I really want to take advantage of that and end up putting him on a team with Dan Quinn that I really like. At number 30 for the Philadelphia Eagles, I think defensive interior, probably one of the biggest positions that you should be targeting now. And he was listed as an edge for some reason. I don't know why. I'm looking at Caleb Banks here, 35-inch arms, like really, really high-level wins. The question is, can he be more consistent? Zane Durant's going to be much more up the alley of Moro Ojomo, who I think you should pay mid-season. So I'm going to go after Caleb Banks here out of Florida, who could be a true nose, eventually replace Jordan Davis. At number 31 for the Baltimore Ravens, Caleb Banks would have been my option. However, that is not going to be the case. So who is the best player? Because that's exactly how they draft. Honestly, defensive interior is not a bad position to go after. Like, I am also looking potentially at some other weaponry. They've done a good job overall. I think they're in a pretty damn good spot. Their interior of the offensive line, though, I do have worries about, and I'm actually going to go after a player who I really, really like, and that's Thomas Rymack out of Virginia Tech, formerly out of West Virginia. There we go. but really consistent over the past 2 years. Look at that, under 20 pressures total over the past 2 years. One of the best interior offensive linemen that I've studied in a hot minute. One of the guys who I'm going to give respect to and get drafted in the first. And at number 32, and ending off this video before tomorrow's rounds 2 and 3, we have the Buffalo Bills. And for the Bills, I mean, I think linebacker is an easy one. Like, that's just the easy go-to. Edge, I think you guys are doing pretty solid. Defensive interior, I know some people would be willing to go after that. Safety, I mean, you're bringing in Jordan Poyer, definitely one of those positions. If you see Dylan Thieneman, you take him. But I feel very comfortable at the moment looking at the linebacking core and looking at the guys who are available. The one who I think should be taken, like in terms of the build and everything above the rest, which I'm very surprised he's not listed this high, is Sonny Styles. Sonny is just a very, very high quality linebacker. He is my linebacker 2. No, he's my linebacker 3. But he's pretty much tied 2 with Whit Weeks. Really like Whit Weeks, but he's just a little bit undersized. I don't think he's going to be really built for the cold weather the same way. The linebacker I love to death, and it's spoiler alert, is Kyle Lewis. Fantastic last year. He's undersized. He's in that 220 range, which is why I will not draft him in this range. But Sonny Styles, I think, is fantastic and deserves a lot of love. But that is going to be the first round. Again, stay tuned tomorrow for rounds 2 and 3. Thank you for showing the love and support that you always do. I'll see you later. Peace.